love that. Hey everyone, my name is Dan Shimolinski. People like to call me Chimy, and you can too. I am a bassist, sound designer, and composer living in Los Angeles, and today we are checking out the Brut! The Brut, yes. Now, sometimes you get slightly different iterations of the Chimy. Sometimes you get excited, sometimes you get in awe, sometimes you get overwhelmed. Well, today, you're getting all three of those things because this is just the most incredible collection of sounds. It is just so much fun, so awe-inspiring, and yes, very overwhelming. The Brut is a synthesizer library, so you already know I am hook, line, and sinker from the start, but then you get into the parts and you see that there are over 80 of them, spanning a ton of categories. You have darkness, you have keys, you have pads, I think there's some leads in here, stabs. I mean, it is just a huge collection of sounds. This library is the brainchild of one of our incredible sound designers, Tarek, who, if you've seen TM next to any programs, those are his. And he is known for his grit, his character, his modulation, and these sounds are some of the most characterful synth sounds that you can possibly have in Soundpaint. All of these sounds were created using some really notable synthesizers, among them the Prophet 6, the OB6, and the Waldorf Quantum. And I just want to talk a little bit about my personal view of this library and its usage. In Soundpaint, we have looked at all kinds of synthesizer libraries, tons that are specific for scoring, some that are meant to evoke nostalgia, 80s replications of amazing synthesizers like the Jupiter 8, the Juno 60. This is something that's just a little bit different. The word of the day is character. The Brut is a character. Brute force, brutal, dark, dry, just absolutely visceral sounding synthesizers. As you'll hear momentarily, this library is a masterclass in creating absolutely organic, original, forceful, and beautiful synthesizer sound design. Part of the reason I have a room that looks like this is because I truly believe that synthesizers all have their own quirks, their own sweet spots, and their own individual personalities and characteristics. The Brut is its own character, its own personality, and there's way too much to get to for me to be talking this long, so let's get started. Now, as I mentioned, there are over 80 parts here. I have the ultra deep sampled version of this library, so this is not gonna be one where I go and play down every single one. I'm gonna talk a little bit about each category and kind of rifle through some of the parts so that you can get a general overview of that character and that personality that I was talking about. My goal of this video is not to have you leaving knowing exactly what this library is gonna sound like, because I think some of the magic of it is discovering these sounds right when you need them as you're exploring the Brut, but rather to have a full picture of the character that Tarek went for here and the types of sound that you can get from the Brut. Starting with the darkness category. Now, this isn't necessarily dark as in dull tone or low tones. It's more of a character and a feel and an emotion. Some of these parts are quite rough and gruff and have a lot of drive and analog treatment, but the overtone, the overarching emotion is definitely on the darker side. Some of these are pads, some of these are hits, but they all kind of have this evolving common thread through them that really is gonna liven up whatever you're making. So here are a few darkness parts. right, so that's half of them. I thought, oh, I'll just play through a couple parts and I just get lost in it, and we will be here all day if I continue to do that. But yeah, darkness can mean a few different things. It's not necessarily dark in tone, sometimes it's just dark in vibe, but there is definitely a common thread that connects all the ones you just heard. I remember playing around with this earlier and really liking the thunder part because it shows off the ultra deep sampled aspect of this library, which is the round robin, the analog variants that I talk so much about and just love in terms of livening up a mix. Let me just go ahead and play you a couple repeated notes on Darkness Thunder, and you're gonna hear how different each one is. I mean, that is just so cool in terms of how it captured the little pitch variation. You can hear that? So, you start to accumulate all these little differences in terms of, maybe the filter slightly does something different, the envelope. That's what we love about analog. I'm not going to go one by one. That was a mistake. That's just going to take forever. So let me just go ahead and pick some random keys for you and show you what those sound like. You hear all that? You hear that developing, kind of just moving. I mean, that's the stuff. So those are some keys. Are you gathering that common character I'm talking about? It's like a little bit of grit. This is not the most nostalgic, the most clean, the most perfect, pretty synthesizer that you can kind of bury behind something. This is a main attraction synthesizer. Center of your mix, center of your everything. I mean, this is just a showstopper. Let's check out a couple pads. Heavy on the D tune, and I love it. I could just sit right in the center of that stereo field and just hold that sustain pedal all day. Wow, that's awesome. Here's a grittier one that I like a lot. That is such a complex stereo image. Are you checking that out? I hope you're listening through headphones. Way cool, way cool. And then finally you get some stabs. Because these stabs are so different from note to note, they make for excellent arps, and I'll show you that now. Woo! Awesome. Okay, I'm spending a lot of time going through these parts. I'm hoping that by now you're starting to get the character of the Brut. That was my intention. I am not going to give you a part-by-part playdown because that'd just be a lot. But we can look at some of these incredible parts in actions over in our program section, where as we have a large library, we have an equally large amount of programs, all awesome, all incredible, ranging from everything. We've got some leads in here, which is not necessarily one of the headings for the parts themselves. It's all general synth vibe stuff. So, just because these parts don't say leads or, we've got some bass sounds in here too, definitely doesn't mean that you can't use them as leads or basses. I'm still in an ARP mood. Let's check out this ARP Adagio for synths. Gorgeous. We've got some really nice treatment here, going through an analog filter, which is definitely mapped to the mod wheel, little touch of analog distortion, a touch, all right, it's 100% wet. A good amount of trim down here to rein it in, nice through a delay, into a shimmer reverb, just a really pretty one, super useful. Let's do another one. Woo, we got 4 parts here, I love it. Love that. So yeah, as I said, this is using a keys part, a darkness part, a pad part, not even using any of the stabs, and we're getting these awesome ARP sounds. Now, let me warn you, I'm gonna make some stank faces for this part because these basses are ridiculous. ridiculous. They are super fun to play and just the nastiest, most analog-y, gritty sounding things you will hear today. Just hold one note. Just hold one note, and you have the entire life character and life story of the Brut in the palm of your hand. Oh, you know I got this blasting up in here. This is nice and loud and juicy. Ah, it's so good. I love it. Let's do another one. Bass Moon. The temptation to not just sit here and play all of these bass parts for you is, it's hard to resist. I mean, it's so good, right? And again, these are keys parts and pads parts. You know, this is not bass specific stuff. So, you know, you are really getting a full range part here. All of these can be used for anything. Can we do one more? Let's do one more. That's great. Ridiculous. There's not even a there's not even a distortion unit on this preset. It's crazy. This is just I'm showing my bias. I'm a bassist. What can I say? This stuff rocks. Let's move on. This is going to be a 3-hour video if I don't. Here's a nice keys patch called Exposed. That's some pure analog magic there, and I'm a huge fan of having that analog filter routed to the mod wheel. That is just super fun to play with. Very much like you would on a real analog synth. Not that this isn't real. These are all real, but you know, you get my point. Here's First Kiss. Yeah, and that is about, I would say, as nostalgia-y as this library gets. There are a few in there that are very like, oh, very cool, synth sounds that are definitely on the retro side of things. That one's not as gritty and nasty, but still within the character. I mean, you've got that phasing between oscillators that you can really hear. It's just grit. It's grit and character across the board. I hope I'm doing a good job of demonstrating that. Here's Free. What a timbre shift on the mod wheel there. What did that's not just the filter closing. No. It lowers the volume of part 1, so you're actually getting a little more. It's almost like you're taking the mix knob and making it more square wave, less saw. You hear that? That sounds like pulse width modulation to me. Very cool. Let's try one with Morph. Stunner. And with Morph, I'll always like to see what each individual sound is, so let's turn it off and listen to each part. So here's the first part. Kind of a nice detuned, brassy sound, and then here's the second part. Nice. And then let's reload it so we can hear what it sounds like together. Oh yeah, so you're getting the kind of like detuned brass thing within the articulation of Eclipse. Definitely more effective than just the two parts together. Right? Let's try a lead. This one is kind of spooky. It's called Embodiment. It's another Morph. Yeah, very spooky. Let's try a pad. This one's called Clean Analog. Clean, kind of. I mean, you're still just getting crazy oscillator beating happening there. That is just the coolest sound. Let's do another one. This one's Continuum. I like this one because it's got the analog filter in the front, going through a rain delay, then chorus, then delay. A lot happening here. Well, like all brutal beasts, they secretly do have a sweet side. That is beautiful, but you still get that kind of detuned, unstable aspect of it, you know? But just a good reminder that in Soundpaint, you can take anything and make anything else out of it. There's actually really not that much treatment on this one. I mean, if we pull absolutely everything off, and yeah, the envelopes are pretty good. Yeah, so those are pad sounds. I mean, it feels silly because, you know, the overarching character of this is like forceful, like, you know, gritty, nasty stuff, but there are some really nice pads in here. And here's another one. This is called Tell Me. Awesome. And finally, let's do a stabs program. Ooh, yeah, we're using 2 maximum voices here, so we're getting a mono effect. So yeah, you can actually limit your voices in the rack section under voicing, and that's going to give you kind of that mono sound without necessarily using mono glide. It's really cool. So you can actually just play some really runny, stabby stuff like that and make it sound like a mono synth. Just incredible. It's so funny because we just went through an immense amount of sounds and I feel like we barely scratched the surface. I mean, literally, we just took a look at maybe 20% of what's here, but I really do hope you are getting the Brut character in your ear palette, if you will. So let's make something from scratch. And got any guesses what I want to do? I definitely want to make a synth bass sound because some of this stuff is just so ripe for synth bass sounds and really like the programs that I heard before. So I'm not going in with too much of a plan here. Just going to try and find some visceral, evolving, detuned stuff that's just going to sit super well in the bass register. As I always do, I kind of like to choose by name and just see if I can get in the vibe. So Hunter has bass vibes to it, right? Maybe not actually. Let's keep going. So I like that sound. Oh, that's cool. But I want to start further into it. There's kind of a lead up. You hear that? I want this bass to knock a little bit more. So we're going to go into offset and kind of navigate ourselves into the middle of this part. We can also bring up our envelope. Yep, we're at attack 0, so that's exactly what we want. It might even be too far. You know what I just noticed about this part, which is really cool, is there's per voice panning. Can you hear that? Oh, that's really neat. It might be a little too wide and movie for the bass sound I'm going for, but that's a good thing to note. You know, as always with all of this Soundpaint stuff, especially the synth stuff, stereo image is a huge priority in terms of detail. So just little things like that to kind of have it pop back and forth. You know, that's definitely the pan spread knob on maybe the Prophet 6 or OB6, but very cool. All right, so let's scrap that. I just would rather go with something that's a little more down the middle. Don't mind me as I just browse through these sounds here. Why do I feel like stabs would be a good place to start? I like that. It's got some late filter envelope action happening. Very reminiscent of Oberheim, so perhaps that's the OB6. But yeah, cool, let's start there and see if we can find a sound that complements it. So that is a stab, so it's not gonna be the longest sustain sound, but it's gonna be a really nice entrance into our bass timbre. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off and see if we can find something that's gonna sustain and kind of complement that a little bit more. Let's try Monsters in the keys section, see what that sounds like. I don't know what modulation's going on in there. It sounds like maybe LFO to the cutoff of the filter, but at the same time you have the oscillators beating maybe slowly. Oh, that's cool. I think these two are gonna be best friends. And that is a testament to the through character that I keep referencing. I mean, we just chose two sounds based on basically name alone, and we got some awesome simpatico compatibility there. Very cool. So I'm gonna have the volume of part 1 be a little bit higher than part 2, just because I want that attack to be prominent. And then it's been a while since we've done an LFO to our pan. I think that would be really cool for the second part. Change our bias to center, maybe 50%. Maybe dial down the amount a little bit, actually. That's nice. And while we're at it, let's pull up our envelope here. We want that to be basically right away. I'm gonna have release be 0 because, you know, punchy synth-based stuff, I wanna be able to kind of like percuss on it a little bit, so not gonna have some long fade-out stuff happen. I love whatever the heck is happening on the filter there on part 1. It has to be OB6. I'm gonna ask Tarek about that. And it's actually, you know, I don't know, maybe even is actually better. A little bump. Because it's a bass sound, I don't want to go too over the top. I'm not feeling 4 full parts on this, but maybe 3. Let's try 3. What else can we find? No. I'm hanging out in this darkness zone here because these tend to evolve a little bit, so maybe a late evolution in the sound would be cool. Let's see, come on, come on. Oh, check this out. So that's pretty abrasive. You wouldn't want that front and center in your bass sound. I mean, maybe you would for a particular kind, but not the kind we're going for. But what if I had it arrive and then swell out? That would be kind of cool, right? So we're gonna slow the attack and slow the decay, maybe even down to like almost half volume, something like that. Let's hear what that sounds like. Even longer, honestly, like maybe 2 seconds. Even longer decay. And it's kind of a jittery sound. What if we added an LFO to the pan to kind of replicate that jittery sound? Let's do 2 here, not 1. Bias to center. And just real tight, maybe like 25%. And then this is gonna be a fast boy. Let's check it out. I like that. Now, I think that's gonna be really, really cool in the hold, in the sustain of our synth bass. Let's try it. Oh yeah. You can even bring that up a little bit more. Now, just a quick refresher here. I am controlling the volume with the sustain and the envelope. Basically, you know, you can change your volume here, but it's all in relation to your envelope because the sustain point is the volume level at which your part will be playing when you are sustaining the note. It's what the decay comes down to, attack up, decay down. So basically, I just adjusted the volume there through the sustain. Oh yeah, that's nice and gritty. And then really, since that's a stab and it gets out of the way, we really only care about how these two are playing together. Yeah. That's nice. Great. I'm happy to stop picking sounds there and just get into our effects section. Now, my gut is distortion, compression, reverb, but let's figure out the order. Let's put some specificity to that. I'm gonna pull up the analog distortion and start there. I mean, that's pretty compelling. I'm not touching a slider. That's just, it's just. First setting, not touching a slider. I like it exactly how it is. Make music faster. And then will a chorus kill it? I don't know. Sometimes choruses, especially if you put them post distortion, can actually lessen the impact of your sound. So I'm cognizant of that, but I do also kind of want that sort of increased phase. So let's see what happens here. Okay, cool. Yes. It's a lot. Let's lower our voice count here. Tighten up the range a touch. There's like a little bit of like upper row that I'm not super thrilled with. I mean, without the chorus, it just has such an attack, such a personality to it, which I do feel like gets dulled slightly. Let's remedy that. So actually moving the range up seems to be helping slightly. Tighten the stereo field a bit. So much of my greatest discoveries in Soundpaint and the stuff that I just love and kind of our go-tos were found this way, by just kind of tinkering and making little adjustments until you find just the right timbre. It's a hard call. It's a hard call. I like so much of what's happening pre-chorus. I can't decide. When I can't decide, typically I just cut my setting in half and I leave it there. it's doing a little bit, a very, very little bit. And then I want to throw a compressor. I want this to throb. I want this to just be super, super beef all the way through. And I find that compressor post effects actually gives you that effect more than the other way because, you know, the distortion has kind of a way of shaping your sound. So if you want it to throb at the end point, I would put the compressor last. Gonna bring that threshold way up. And I like a little bit of fluff, a little bit on the attack, just kind of bring up the attack and release. Oh my God, that's getting so loud. Just for the sake of the video, I'm gonna grab this volume up here. I mean, that is gnarly. That is gnarly. That is G-N-A-R-L-Y, gnarly. Oh my gosh. I don't really want to put it through a reverb, but I feel kind of obligated to. Ooh, what would phaser sound like? I like it, but I only like it 15%. Yeah, that's cool. I think I like it with. Okay, now let's pick a reverb that's not something too. I typically like to go with the Lexi when I'm doing something just gentle. I just want to give it some air. I don't want it to necessarily be the longest trail. It's a pretty long trail. So I'm gonna change the size to a rather large size. And then I kind of just mess with shape and spread until I end up somewhere that I like. Do all late. Maybe a touch of early. That's nice. That's just a little like kiss of, oh, it's existing in a space, but it's not like reverb, you know? So just a subtle thing there. Sick. Well, we have a pretty dope 3-part bass sound. It's going through some analog distortion, a little bit of vintage vibes with the chorus and the phaser. I've got a nice fluffy compressor on it, just a touch of space to give it some context. And I think the result definitely captures the Brut spirit. Yo! Yeah, that is rocking. So that is a very, very truly brief overview of what is the most in-depth, nasty, characterful synth library I think I've played to date. It is so fun. It is so that thing. I mean, you know what these sounds are. You've heard them before. You're hearing them now. If this is the kind of vibe that you need, this is just a beautifully, beautifully treated and sampled library. It is super, super fun to play. And as I always say, I mean, having this kind of blend with something maybe soft and sweet like a piano or some kind of acoustic instrument, who knows? The possibilities are endless. So that's the Brut. I hope you picked this one up because you need some Brut in your life for sure. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. This is Chimy signing out, and I'll see you next time. Take care.